In this video, we're going to be talking about the Reconstruction vocabulary for our Reconstruction unit. Without further ado, let's jump into the computer and get it going. Our first word is Reconstruction, so we pretty much need to know what we're talking about here. So, Reconstruction is the act of, or the process of building something or rebuilding something, putting it back together. In the terms of this unit, we're talking about reconstructing the United States back into the Union. So this is after the Civil War. The Confederacy has lost the war, and so they're trying to put the United States back so that it can become one country again. Next word is Radical Republicans. These are Republicans favoring drastic measures against the southern states in the period following the Civil War. So this was a congressional group that wanted to kind of punish the Confederacy, but also make sure that it wasn't going to happen again. The Civil War, nobody was going to leave the Union, so they were known as the Radical Republicans, and they ended up taking control of Reconstruction during the time after the Civil War. The next word we have is impeach, which is to change the holder of a political office based on misconduct. So we've had 3 presidents impeached in the United States. We've had 3 presidents impeached. Those were Johnson, Clinton, and Trump. Ku Klux Klan. This is an extremist right-wing secret society in the United States that kind of showed up after the Civil War, after the laws were passed that allowed African Americans and freed slaves to go free, and this was a hate group that showed up after the Civil War. Next word we have is Juneteenth. Juneteenth is a holiday that is celebrated as the day that the Texas slaves were released. It was June 19th, 1865. So that day is still celebrated today with a festival annually on June 19th by African Americans to commemorate emancipation from slavery in Texas on that day in 1865. The next word is sharecropper. This is a tenant farmer who gives a part of each crop as rent. So a tenant farmer is basically somebody that's living on the farmland but does not own it. This sharecropping came up as kind of illegal slavery. So you'd have these plantation owners that still didn't want to work in the fields, and the slaves who didn't have any work to do, or it was hard for them to find jobs. So this sharecropping came up, and the sharecroppers would basically do all the work and then just get a portion of the crops and give the rest to the landowner. Next word is nullify, which is to make legally null and void, which invalidate, so basically canceling it out. So if we nullify something, that means it's no longer in existence, it's canceled out. Next word is carpetbaggers. This is a political candidate who sought election in an area where they have no local connections. So mainly these guys, when we're talking about the Civil War, they would come from the north and go down to the south, kind of transplant just for the purpose of getting reelected. So that's a carpetbagger. Next word we have is the Freedmen's Bureau. The Freedmen's Bureau was an agency that was set up in 1865 to assist freed slaves in finding jobs, land, fair treatment, education, educating the children. So it's basically their government agency solely with the sole purpose of trying to help out the freed slaves. Next we have black codes, which were laws that made it very hard for African Americans and freed slaves to do basically anything in the United States after the Civil War. So the actual definition is any code of law that defined and especially limited the rights of former slaves after the Civil War. So this is like can't own guns, you can't vote unless you can read. We know not a lot of slaves could read. You can't have a job if you were once a slave, something like that. They would just pass these laws that were basically segregating the freed slaves and the African Americans. Next word we have is a scallywag. Scallywag is a white southerner who collaborated with the Northern Republicans during Reconstruction, often for personal profit. So scallywag is going to be somebody that is just trying to make money on a deal, whether that's to get somebody elected or try to convince people, campaign for somebody in the North and come down to the South. So these are people that are just out for personal profit, to make a little bit of money and live in the South. And that'll do it. Appreciate y'all watching the Reconstruction vocab. If you need anything from us, do let us know. We're here to help. We'll see you next one.